We're going to be finishing our Southeast Mid-Atlantic journey on US 301. Come on, let's go! Alright everyone, after a long US 1 series, we're going to be finishing up one of its children, US 301. This time we're going to be heading southbound on the highway as we're going to be starting up in Delaware and traveling all the way down to Florida. And oh boy, is this direction way worse than northbound. As you can see here, we're going to have some neglected, along with North Carolina reaching new lows, like seriously new lows. So let us get started with US 301. But first, you're watching the TheDerpHog, where I make highways content on all sorts of different topics. If you've been enjoying it, be sure to hit that like button. And if you've been really enjoying it, be sure to smash that subscribe button so you're notified on all future videos. And if you really want to help out the channel, become a member today, where you get custom cool emojis, early access to future videos, along with one free extra request per month. And if you don't want to become a member, you can always just pay $3 for a intersection request in future videos. Those highways will be listed down in the description below, and I'll make sure to shout you out when that video releases. So let's get on with the highway. As you can see here, this is the map of US 301 once again, as today we're going to be starting up here just south of Wilmington, Delaware, and travel through these states all the way down to Sarasota, Florida, where we end at a junction with US 41. So with that, I'm going to be talking about southbound US 301. So we begin here, just south of Wilmington, Delaware, on Delaware Route 1/US Highway 13. Where we have an exit for US 301 southbound being signed for Annapolis, which is an awesome choice. And we can also see here that this portion of US 301 is actually tolled, which is a rarity because I don't know how many US highways are actually tolled. And our first exit is exit 9 for Jamison Corner Road here. And our first major exit is for Delaware Route 71 here, which, if I remember correctly, used to be the old alignment of US 301 before they built this new tolled freeway here. And then a couple miles down the road, we're now entering into the state of Maryland. So let us see what Maryland has to offer on US 301. And our first mileage sign, we get a one-liner for the Bay Bridge from 47 miles away. What happened to Annapolis? Delaware was signing it, so you should be signing it too, Maryland. But at random junctions, we're just getting signed south for the Bay Bridge. I want to see Annapolis here, or the Bay Bridge and Annapolis, not just the Bay Bridge. And then on our way to the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, we actually passed by old US Highway 213 here, which has been downgraded to Maryland Route 213. And then here we meet Maryland Highway 18, and we are going to be meeting with US Highway 50 soon. In fact, here's that merge with US Highway 50, as US 50 and 301 are now going to be concurrent as they cross the Chesapeake Bay Bridge together. But if you want to get back to US 50 eastbound, because since the 301 and 50 is a Y junction, you should take this exit here, exit 45B, before you cross over the Bay Bridge. And here's the toll apparatus thingy as we're about to cross onto the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. And here we get an awesome view on the bridge itself, as we can see that there's land up ahead. And after getting off the bridge, our first major couple intersections is Maryland Route 2 and 450 here. And here we have a picture taken by Tiger Raven of Interstate 97, along with the next control city for 50 and 301 here, as they're now getting signed for Washington, D.C., which is an awesome choice. He also took a picture of the exit where US 301 splits off from US Highway 50, as we're now getting signed for Richmond, which is also an awesome choice, while 50 West is still getting signed for Washington, D.C. And then here in Upper Marlboro, we meet with Maryland Highway 4, which is also getting signed for Washington, D.C., and south for Prince Frederick, which are good choices. And here we get another mileage sign, and we get Richmond, Virginia from 110 miles away, which is awesome. Here in Waldorf, we meet with Maryland Route 5 here, and we're going to be continuing south towards Richmond. And an interesting quirk about the Potomac River Bridge, going southbound on 301, it is actually tolled. while northbound it was completely free, and it cost $4.50 to travel the bridge. Wow. Here is the Potomac River Bridge as we're crossing over the Potomac River. And on the other side, we get a Welcome to Virginia sign, so glad that Virginia is welcoming us. And our first mileage sign, we get Richmond as our primary from 69 miles away. And our first major intersection is Virginia Route 3, which is a very cool road. I should probably do a video on this someday. I'm always down the road when I'm meeting with the great US 17, and if you want to check out a video on US 17, it's in the top right corner here. And then here in Bowling Green, Virginia, we're now meeting with Virginia Route 207, and we're now going to be concurrent with Virginia Highway 2 as well as we head south towards Richmond. On our next mileage time, we now get Richmond as our secondary from 38 miles away, and then Emporia is now our primary from 102. I mean, I don't know about that. I mean, you could just do a two-liner here, or if you want something beyond Richmond, I would do Petersburg instead, because Emporia is a major junction with US 58, but it only has like 4,000 people. It does not need to be signed from 102 miles away. Anyways, once we enter into the Richmond area, our first major junction is Interstate 295, which is getting signed for Washington, Charlottesville going one direction, and Norfolk and Rocky Mount going the other. Good choices. And here we get another mileage sign as we now get Colonial Heights on the set as our secondary and Emporia still as our primary. You can also maybe you could do Petersburg instead, or Raleigh, because we're about to join with US Highway 1, and 1 goes to Raleigh, and on the concurrency, they actually signed Raleigh as our primary, so Raleigh could be a good choice here. In fact, here's that set junction with US Highway 1, and US 1 and 301 are going to have a concurrency as we head south towards Petersburg. And our first major junction with the concurrency is Interstate 95 and 64 as they're getting signed for Petersburg and Norfolk. Personally, I like to see Durham for 95 South because of Interstate 85. But that Norfolk is good for Interstate 64. And then here in the heart of downtown Richmond, we meet with US Highway 250 here. And then on the outskirts of Richmond, we now get a mileage sign with Raleigh now as our primary from 151 miles away. But the downside is that for some reason US 1 is missing from this concurrency, because US 301 does not go to South Hill or Raleigh. And here we meet with Virginia Highway 288, which personally I think should become Interstate 864. And this is where we split off from US Highway 301, and it looks like VDOT has made an error as this is supposed to be Virginia Highway 36. Come on VDOT, you're not in the Midwest, stop going out west. After splitting off from US Highway 1 in Petersburg, our first major junction is Interstate 95 once again. And it looks like that VDOT has made another Virginia Route 36 error. Like, do they love US 36 or something? Then they should ask to extend it into their state if they keep making errors like this. And here we meet with Interstate 95 at exit 50 here, as we can see in the distance that it's getting signed for Rocky Mount. For our next mileage sign, we're now getting signed for Rocky Mount from a good 94 miles away. So if we should be the one that's getting signed for Rocky Mount, while Interstate 95 should be getting signed for Fayetteville. Here in Stony Creek, we're now meeting with Virginia Highway 40 here, which is the longest state highway in Virginia. And skipping all the way down to Emporia, we meet with US Highway 58, which will take you over to Interstate 95. And US 58 is a very interesting and awesome road. Then our next mileage time, we are now still getting Rocky Mount as our primary from a good 56 miles away. And then here after going through Skippers, Virginia, we are now getting all 3 North Carolina cities here, with Rocky Mount still as our primary. And here we are entering into the state of North Carolina. Let's see what North Carolina has to offer on US 301. Here you're meeting with North Carolina Highway 48 here, as our control city is now becoming Weldon, which is an okay choice because we meet US 158 there, but I prefer to see Rocky Mount instead. So you're actually assigning these places? Yeah, you got a problem with that? Of course I have a problem with this, NCDOT. Not only are you signing 2 places that no one's ever heard of, you're also totally neglecting VDOT, which was signing one of your biggest cities along the Interstate 95/US 301 corridor. Sure, Enfield has 2,000 people, but Rocky Mount is just a little ways down the road and was being signed since Petersburg, Virginia. And you're totally ignoring that by signing a place with only 2,000 people and have what, like 1 state route junction, while Rocky Mount has multiple state route junctions and a major interstate/US highway junction. So why, NCDOT? Why are you neglecting Rocky Mount? Here in Weldon, we meet with US Highway 158, and we're now going to be concurrent with it as we head through town. And here's that split with US Highway 158, which will take you into downtown Roanoke Rapids and over to Interstate 95, while we're going to be heading south towards Rocky Mount. In fact, now our Wilson becomes our primary from 54 miles away, so that is awesome to see. But our next mileage time, we now get Enfield on the top line from 11 miles away and Rocky Mount as our primary once again. I mean, that's still not a bad choice. Rocky Mount is still a pretty sizable city. And on our way to Rocky Mount, we actually pass by the road that will take you over to North Carolina Highway 4 eastbound, since North Carolina 4 and US 301 are, again, a Y junction. And then once we enter the Rocky Mount area, we have our bypass route and our business route, and we're going to be staying on the regular route here. Here we meet with US Highway 64, which is in good control cities of Tarboro going eastbound and Raleigh going westbound. And then skipping ahead to Wilson, we meet with North Carolina Highway 42 here, an awesome road. And if you want to see a couple of videos on it, it's in the top right corner here. Still in the Wilson area, we meet with alternate US Highway 264, and westbound alternate 264 is going to be concurrent with us. And we can see that there's a mileage sign in the distance. Let's see what it says. Fayetteville? We're getting signed for Fayetteville from a good 80 miles away? What? That is totally a 180 from what you did earlier, NCDOT. This is a rare W here. Well done. Well done signing Fayetteville from a very far distance. That is awesome. And as we're exiting out of the Wilson area, we meet with Interstate 587 here, which is being signed Raleigh for northbound and Greenville for southbound, which are good choices. And then we also meet Interstate 795 a little ways up the road, as it's now being signed north for Raleigh and south for Goldsboro and Mount Olive. But our next mileage time, sadly, Smithfield now becomes our primary once again from 25 miles away. But Smithfield's not a bad choice, it's still a pretty sizable city. But in Kenly, Interstate 95 is the one that gets signed for Smithfield, while we get probably just Kenly or the next town. Come on, NCDOT, you were just signing Fayetteville from a good 80 miles away. You should continue channeling that energy, not this energy here. On our way to Smithfield, we actually passed by the road that will take you over to Kenly 95 once again, an awesome place to visit. Oh boy, once we enter into the Selma city limits, we get Smithfield as our primary from only 5 miles away. What? That doesn't make sense. Now I want to start seeing Fayetteville on the bottom line because we don't need Smithfield from a good 5 miles away. Plus, why are we being signed for Selma when we already are in this Selma city limits? This should just be Smithfield, Fayetteville. No need for that Selma from 1 mile away. Here's my own picture of US 301 meeting with US Highway 70 here, as it's being signed for Goldsboro and Clayton, and we can see that North Carolina 39 was concurrent with us and now ends at this junction. Here's another one of my own pictures, this time in Business US 70 in the heart of Smithfield, and it'll take you over to Interstate 95. And here's my own picture of a mileage sign with Fayetteville becoming our primary once again from 45 miles away this time. And Four Oaks is where we meet with US Highway 701. And here's that said junction with US Highway 701, as 301 is going to be turning right here, while 701 is going to continue south towards the coast. And on our way to Benson, we actually passed by over Interstate 40 here. Sadly, we do not have a direct interchange with it. And here we are now getting a Welcome to Benson sign. That is actually a pretty cool sign by an infamous town here. And here in the heart of Benson, we meet with North Carolina 27 and North Carolina Highway 50. And I don't know why North Carolina 27 is listed here when it ends a couple miles east of here. Interesting. And then skipping ahead down to Dunn, we meet with the Great US 421 along with North Carolina Highway 55 here. And after going through Dunn, we get another mileage sign, and now we get Lumberton as our primary from 50 miles away. I mean, personally, you could just do a one-liner here, because Fayetteville is a pretty big city by itself that is good enough for a one-liner. But Lumberton is still a pretty sizable city, too, so I kind of see why they're signing it. Here in the Fayetteville area, we become concurrent with Interstate 95 Business, as we're now getting signed for a suburb of Hope Mills, while North Carolina 24 is getting signed for Clinton going eastbound and for Fort Liberty going westbound. We also meet North Carolina Highway 87 here, which is actually a freeway and it will take you up into downtown. And here we meet the road that will take you over to US Highway 401 because 301 and 401 do not have a direct interchange with each other. And here we meet the old North Carolina 59, which is the road that would take you into Hope Mills. And on that road, we're now getting signed for Lumberton once again, so that is an awesome choice. But once we split off from Interstate 95 Business, we're now just getting signed for Parkton and Red Springs. I have never heard of those two places, so why are you signing them? But our next mileage sign, we get North Carolina 71 on the top line, and St. Paul's now is our primary from 9 miles away. Now you're just completely messing with me, NCDOT. I don't know what to say. Anyways, here's the nice little town of St. Paul's when I went through it last fall. And here we meet with North Carolina Highway 20, which is being signed for Lumber Bridge and Elizabethtown. For our next mileage sign, we now get Roland as our primary from 32 miles away. That is literally the last town in North Carolina. North Carolina is literally being provincial here. This should definitely be Dillon because Dillon is way bigger than Roland and like I said, is out of state. No need for this Roland here. Skipping ahead to the Lumberton area, we're now going to be joining with Interstate 95 here, getting signed south for nothing strangely. And after going through the heart of Lumberton, we split off from Interstate 95 as we're now getting signed south for historic Fairmont. Okay. Here in Roland, we meet with US Highway 501 along with North Carolina Highway 130. And we're now going to be concurrent with US 501 as we head into South Carolina. For next mileage time, we get Florence on the bottom right, 42 miles away. Now that's how you favor a route. Now we're meeting Interstate 95, which is signed south for nothing here, apparently. And our first mileage sign here in South Carolina, we get Hammer at 1 mile away and Dillon at 7. What is the deal with South Carolina and having these really bad mileage signs? First on 17 bypass, now here on 501. What are they doing here? Here in Dillon, we're meeting South Carolina 9 and 57. And we're now signed south for Marion, Myrtle Beach, and Florence. And after that brief concurrency with US 501, we split off from it as we're now getting signed south for Florence, which is an awesome choice. And then a ways up the road, we're now going to be concurrent with US Highway 76 here. And we're now going to have a short concurrency with that highway. And here's where we split off from US Highway 76, as we also meet with South Carolina Highway 327 here. And US 76 is the route that will take you into downtown Florence. And then all the way down the road, we're now going to become concurrent with US Highway 52 for a short time, and we're going to be heading southwest. And here's where we split off from US Highway 52, as we're now getting signed for Atlanta and Manning, which are good choices. In fact, on our next mileage line, we do get Manning as our primary from 37 miles away. Here in the Atlanta area, we'll meet with US Highway 378, and we're now going to be concurrent with it as we head towards Manning and Sumter now. And here we get a mileage time, Manning for us at 19 miles away, and Sumter for US 378 from a good 21. This is a good mileage time by NCDOT. Here in the Manning area, we meet with South Carolina 261 along with US Highway 521 here. And we're now getting signed for Orangeburg and Walterboro as our next control cities, which is a good choice. Here in the Somerton area, we meet with Interstate 95 for another time, because why wouldn't we? And now we're going to be concurrent with US Highway 15. Here we are meeting with Interstate 95, and we'll be concurrent with it as we head south towards Savannah. And I'm going to be skipping the 95 and 15301 concurrency, as it's just a convoluted mess, and I don't know where 15 and 301 get off of Interstate 95, so I'll just be skipping it. But though we do have a picture, this one was taken by Ryan Golden, as they took a picture of Lake Hartwell here off of Interstate 95, and that looks actually pretty cool. Here we split off from US Highway 15 as we're not getting signed south for Orangeburg, which is an awesome choice. On our way to Orangeburg, we meet with US Highway 176 here in the middle of nowhere. And I'm meeting with Interstate 26, which is getting signed east for Charleston and west for Columbia respectively, which are great choices. And then here in the heart of Orangeburg, we're meeting with US 21 and US 178 here, as they're getting signed for North, while we're going to be still being signed for Orangeburg, strangely. But once we join up with US Highway 601, our now next control city becomes Bamberg. And on our way out of Orangeburg here, we pass by Business US 178, and it looks like that NCDOT has made an error shield here, as one of those US 601 shields should be US 301 instead. Unless if NCDOT is trying to join in with the math trend and want to do US 361,201. Anyways, a couple miles down the road, we're now splitting off from US Highway 601, and we're now getting signed for Allendale, which is an awesome choice. And on our way to Allendale, we actually meet with US Highway 321 here, and 321 and 301 are now going to have a concurrency. And our next mileage time, we get Fairfax as our primary. What? Today I learned that there's a Fairfax, South Carolina. Why is it being our primary? If you want to favor US 321, you should do Savannah, because US 321 ends at US 17, which takes you into Savannah. No need for Fairfax here. But once we split off from US 321, it is getting signed for both Fairfax and Savannah, I like that Savannah. But we're still getting signed south for Allendale. And this is a main theme with SCDOT. The highway that we're currently doing only gets one control city, while the concurrent highway that's splitting off gets two. Both of the highways should definitely get two control cities. I think we should get both Allendale and Slovenia here. But luckily, once we meet US 278 in Allendale, our next control city does become Slovenia from 32 miles away. And we're now entering into the state of Georgia. Oh boy, let's see what Georgia has to offer on US 301. And our first mileage time, we get Newton as our primary from 24 miles away. And you want to know where that is? It's on one of the Georgia state highways. So Georgia is welcoming us by doing their usual highway favoritism. Here in Slovenia, our next control city now becomes Statesboro from your choice. In fact, we get one line in here with just Statesboro from 23 miles away, and I kind of agree with that. Here in Statesboro, we'll meet with US Highway 80, and we're now going to sign for Claxton, and US 25 is now going to be joining with us too as we head towards Claxton. In fact, our next mile chime, we get 1-16 from 8 miles away, and Claxton as our primary from 19 miles away. Oh, GDOT meant Interstate 16, not 116. Oops. And skipping ahead to Claxton, here we meet with Georgia Route 30 along with US Highway 280 here in the heart of the city. And our next mile chime, we now get Ludowiki as our secondary and Jessup now as our primary from 48 miles away, which is a good choice. And here in Ludowiki, we meet with US Highway 84, and surprise, surprise, GDOT has made another error here with Georgia Route 25, which is supposed to be US 25. And our next mile chime, we now get Folkestone as our primary from 67 miles away, which is an awesome choice. And Waycross is actually for US 84. We split off from US Highway 84 as US 25 and 301 are now going to be heading around the city of Jessup. And this is where US 25 joins with US Highway 341 as they head toward Brunswick. And now our next control city becomes Nahunta. In fact, our next mile chime, we get Folkestone once again as our primary from 54 miles away. And here in Nahunta, we meet with US Highway 82 here, and our next control city still becomes Folkestone. The GDOT has pulled out a surprise card here, and we're now getting signed for Jacksonville. This is awesome, GDOT. Well done. Jacksonville is definitely an awesome choice for US 301. And here in Folkestone, we meet with US Highway 1 and 23, and we're now going to be concurrent with it as we head towards Jacksonville in the state of Florida. Hey, look at that! We hit the jackpot of highways. We have US 1, US 23, Georgia 23, Georgia 4, Georgia 15, 121, and US Highway 301. Interesting how US 23 and Georgia 23 are now concurrent with each other. And after going through Folkestone, we're now entering into the state of Florida, and this is actually a really cool welcome sign, FDOT. And this here is in Callahan, and I could not get a good view of the intersection here, so I had to jump onto some sort of parking lot just to get this good view. I did not really enjoy it. And here we split off from US 1 and 23 as we're now getting signed for Baldwin as our primary, which I think is an alright choice because we do meet with Interstate 10 there, along with US Highway 90. For our next mileage time, we get Ocala now as our primary from 101 miles away, so FDOT is doing their usual awesome swing here. And here in Baldwin, we meet with US Highway 90, and it'll also meet Interstate 10 soon. And let's see what we're signed for on US Highway 90. We're now getting signed for Stark and Ocala, which are awesome choices. On our way out of Baldwin, we meet with Interstate 10 here, and I am so glad that we did not get a 10 westbound control city, because we all know what it would be, and I do not like that. Our next mileage time, we still get Ocala as our primary from 77 miles away, and Stark is now our secondary from only 19. Here in Stark, we are now getting a regular route and an alternate route, and no, get that place off my screen, please get it off! Phew, everything is right with the world once again, as Ocala is our primary from 59 miles away. Here we meet with US Highway 441 and US 301 and 441 are going to have a concurrency as we head towards Ocala. And here in the Ocala area, we meet with US Highway 27, which will take you over to Interstate 75, while 27 South is now going to be concurrent with 301 and 441 here. Just south of Ocala, we split off from both US 27 and 441, as US 301 is now going to be heading south towards Wildwood in Tampa. In fact, our next Malachon, we do get both of those places, with Tampa as our primary from a good 88 miles away. Here in Wildwood, we meet with the Florida's Turnpike, which is being signed south for Miami and north for Ocala, respectively. And here we meet with US Highway 98. Here we're now going to be concurrent with it as we head south towards Tampa. And here we split off from US Highway 98 as it's being signed south for Lakeland, while we're still going to be heading towards Tampa. But our next mileage sign, we get Sarasota now as our primary from 79 miles away, which makes sense because that's US 301 southern terminus. What are you going to sign, the Gulf of America? And once we enter into the Tampa metro area, we meet with Florida Highway 582 here, as it's being signed for a lot of stuff. It'll take you over to the suburb of Temple Terrace, along with University of South Florida and Tampa Busch Gardens, so cool places. And our next mileage time, we still get Sarasota as our primary from a good 60 miles away, with Ellington as our secondary, which is where we meet with US 41. And here we meet with Interstate 4 along with US Highway 92 as they're getting signed for Tampa and Orlando respectively. And we also meet with Interstate 75 being signed north for Ocala and south for Naples. And here in the Ellington area, we meet with Interstate 75 once again, as this time it's getting signed north for Tampa and St. Pete, while 75 is still getting signed south for Naples. Personally, I prefer to see Naples and Miami because Miami is a really big city and it's way bigger than Naples, but Naples still is a pretty big city here on this side of Florida. And here in Ellington, we meet with US Highway 41, and we're now going to be concurrent with 41 South here, as we're going to be heading towards Bradenton. And it is very awesome to see that US 19 gets a mention here, so well done, FDOT. And here in the heart of Bradenton, we meet with Florida Highway 64, which was requested by Southern Route Geek 741, as he said that Florida Highway 64 is a cool road to drive on, and it will take you over to Anna Maria Island, which is a beautiful island. So thank you for that request. And after going through downtown Bradenton, we split off from US Highway 41, as 301 is going to be heading south towards downtown Sarasota. And one of our last major junctions is Florida Highway 70 here, which will take you back to Interstate 75. And then here in the heart of Sarasota, we also meet with Florida Highway 780 here, which is also known as Fruitville Street. And then a couple miles down the road, we meet with US Highway 41 once again, and sadly, FDOT does not give us an end US Highway 301 shield. The only thing that we get is these 41 shields here. So with that, we end US Highway 301 and we move on to the way it should be. So these are the places that I think should be signed on 301. If you have any suggestions or any places that you want to change, please let me know down in the comment section below, and I'll love to debate with you on this list. And that ends US Highway 301. Again, I want to say thank you so much for watching this episode on US Highway 301 southbound. I hope you were a bit educated more about this highway, and if you have not been on this highway, I recommend doing so because it is a pretty cool and interesting highway, especially here in North Carolina. So with that, here are my next few highways. If you have any intersection requests for any of these upcoming highways, please let me know down in the comment section below, and I'll make sure to shout you out once these highways release. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all next week as we do US 25.